Hello, everyone. I hope people are having a good weekend so far. Um, I've already started the stream, but the actual thing is going to happen in 2 minutes. I just started early because I wanted people to come in before the thing started. So, a couple of things. I'll probably repeat this again, but the questions will be answered later on after the main part ends. So I wanted to create a presentation, but it took so long for me to finish writing the guide actually this morning. I mean, actually, I was writing until 30 minutes ago. But yes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the guide. So it's kind of like an audiobook, but I'm doing it live. And then I might also talk about other things while reading the book because, I digress a lot. So, anywho, I will have the chat window open um, so I can take a look at what people are saying or, make sure that I don't miss any questions later on. Yes. Yeah, so anyway, I got one more minute to just relax and do nothing while I should probably get ready. I already had the main part, what I wanted to write in mind. I just happened to do it today because I had other work to do during the week. All right, so it's 5 p.m. Thank you for 4 people who have joined me, and I hope there will be many others who would watch the stream in archive because I know a lot of people are in, different time zones and they can't exactly join me right now. Okay, so I'm going to start it. Hi. So this is the guide, the practical guide of female language in Japanese for gender diverse people by me. If you can let me know if there are any audio or other technical issues, please let me know immediately so I can deal with it. Hopefully. Hopefully there is none. If any if anything should happen, if my internet dies or something, I will probably make a separate recording of this. So the entire video will be whole. But it doesn't seem like my internet is dying. So, let's get to it. All right, the practical guide of female language in Japanese for gender diverse people by me. Yes, I'm just scrolling through my PDF that I wrote. Introduction. Hello, readers. My name is Mishima Kitan. That's Mishima is my surname, and Kitan is my name. A lot of people think that it is in English order, but it's not. It is in Japanese order. I'm a Japanese queer trans non binary person, as you may or may not know already. I was born and raised in Japan and lived the majority of life there, but I went to an American private school, hence my bilingual abilities. I currently work as a freelance translator and localizer and proofreader in both languages. I wrote this guide in hopes that it could help LGBTQIA plus Japanese learners, especially trans, non binary, and gender diverse learners who are interested in the feminine vernacular in Japanese. This guide is aimed for those who are not minors, mainly due to my language usage, because I will be swearing. And that's the reason why I have my Twitch is set at uh, I forgot what my Twitch says, but it's Are you sure you want to watch this channel? Because this is for like adults. Only because I curse a lot. But anyway, let's get back to it. Also, this guide is for those who have more than an intermediate level understanding of the Japanese language. Complete beginners. Yes, I intended to write complete beginners may get lost trying to go through this. I will correct this before I release this PDF on my coffee. So, beginners may get lost going through this. What a terrible grammar. Anyway, if you are financially able to do so, I'll greatly appreciate it if you could donate to my coffee. At the time of this writing, right now, June 2012. I almost said June 2012. 2022. That is the year we are in. Oh, hello, Farah. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Yes. Anyway, getting back to the document. At the time of this writing, June 2022, I'm saving funds for my gender affirming care fund, and any amount of donation would help. You can donate to me on Coffee, as you can see, the link over there. Yes, anyway, I hope this guide will be helpful for a lot of people. So, I think a lot of people already follow me on Twitter, but yes, my Twitter is Mishima, and also all of my socials are using the same username. I'm not on Facebook because I don't like Facebook. And what else am I not on? Like, I'm on most places. Instagram, Twitter. I mean, I don't really use Instagram. I just have it because my friends are on it and I like to look at their pictures. Anyway, so best wishes and love to all of my fellow queer people who are joining me today and reading this PDF with me. Not any, all unauthorized reprints, reproductions, and redistribution of this documents are strictly prohibited, unless it's me doing it. Of course, because I wrote this. Yes. Disclaimer. As always, my writing is not the be-all and end-all of the topic at hand. This document is based on the standardized Japanese language, Hyojingo desu ne, and does not address the various Japanese dialects which have varied sets of rules and gender expression that deviate from the standard Japanese language. Also, I am not a linguist nor a historian. I'm just a person. And yes, yeah, I'm not a linguist nor a historian of the Japanese language, so I can't explain to you like linguistical intricacies. Those are, I want linguists to take care of those stuff. Yes, this guide is more like a general starter guide to speaking Japanese feminine vernacular in standardized Japanese language. Yes, I have a note over here. The following pages contain edited excerpts from the blog articles I've written on this topic previously to give some context. If you've already read this blog post, you can skip a few pages to read the chapters that are unique to this guide. So, the next couple of pages, it's just like copy and pasting, just a little bit of edit from my blog post that I've written. So, I don't think I don't have to go through that. I think a lot of people may have already read it. I'll just like briefly go through and explain a bit of the pages. So this part, maybe I should go through it. Just this part. So what is Joseigo? Joseigo is a female language that's like a literal translation. And as noted in Daijisen, which is general purpose Japanese dictionary, Joseigo refers to a type of words and phrases that are uniquely used by women in Japanese language. For example, sentences ending with like dawa, nani nani dawa, or noyo, nani nani nanoyo. Well, nanoyo is different. Well, it's like it's in the same line of things. I'll get to it later. Um, so those are examples of joseigo desu ne. And there is also like a list of joseigo in Wikipedia, which I didn't write in this PDF, but I think I might just like go through it later on at like the end of this thing, the end of the presentation. I think people might be interested in that because it's not written in English, it's only in Japanese. So anyway, that is joseigo desu ne. And then there's like a whole bunch of history. There's like this military colonial background behind the reason why Joseigo became popular in Japanese. Um, so, hmm, maybe I'll just like really quickly read through this. So, summarize history of Japanese female language. So, here's the rundown. Number one, what most Japanese people consider to be the modern female language in Japan came up around Meiji era, which is like 1868 to 1912. It was a vernacular spoken by young female students. Number two, at the time, this newly introduced female language was seen as not proper, with severe criticism thrown at it, including this language is not suitable for a good mother and a housewife, and it's vulgar, disordered language because they're sexist fucks. That's the reason why they've been criticizing it. Anyway, number three, the treatment of the female language earned the position of proper Japanese language. So it became regarded as proper Japanese language during the Japanese colonialization of the Korean Peninsula and Taiwan. The female language was used as a part of the forced assimilation policy by the Japanese government to those people. It was then that the Japanese government started to say that the wonderful part of the Japanese language is that it segregates vernacular between men and women. Hmm. Number four. After World War II, the Japanese government praised the female language even further to regain its pride because, it lost. They fabricated the origins of the vernacular and started to spread the lie that the female language was a language of the fine daughters of families who belonged to the middle class or above in the Yamanote area. And Yamanote is like, somewhere around Tokyo. You might know because there is like a really famous train line called Yamanote-sen going all around Tokyo. Anywho, during this time, the public notion of femininity, that Japanese women are polite, modest, and sophisticated, also came about. People also started to think that if a person is a woman, they ought to use the female language. Number five, in post World War II Japan, there was a tremendous amount of movies and novels imported from overseas. These movies and novels were then translated with a copious amount of female language usage for female characters. Not surprising. This has led to the spread of the female language among the public mass, and thus it became an established vernacular for women in Japan at the time. So that's the historical background behind the spread of female language in Japan, ですね. So there's this thing like because the female language became popular around that time, like right after the war happened, this next part explains why some female language makes a person perceived to be female sound like an older person. Given that the female language became popular in usage around the post-war era, its usage, blah, my tongue. Its usage seems most common in women who were born soon after World War II, like the boomer generation, in my opinion. So my mom was born in the 1950s. So she used, you know, female, like joseigo, typical joseigo, when she was talking to me. So I kind of associate some of the words with like older women because, women around her age, like 60s, 70s, might more frequently use it than younger people. So I didn't know the origins of the female language until I started researching and writing this article, but I already understood it as a language for older women because that's how my mother and other older women spoke around me or on TV. So that's the excerpt. That ends the excerpt from my blog article. And the next part is what is unique to this document. So I've written a little bit in my articles before about gendered vernacular and passing, but I want to expand further on the topic here. So I'll just not write, read, read it out loud. Excuse me, I'm just taking off my cardigan right now because it's getting hot. Okay, passing in Japan. From my observation and experiences, I believe that passing in Japan has a similar aspect to passing in Western nations, in the sense that it is based on how much a person is in line with the cis heteronormative fat phobic standards of each binary gender, visually and vocally. I'm usually perceived as a cis male person inside and outside of Japan because usually I have a beard and dress in like metalhead bro outfits, generally due to my laziness. Like, I don't go out of my way to dress up really nicely every day, you know. Like, I work from home, so I'm usually like in my sweatpants and t-shirt. Or if I do go outside to get like groceries, I'm just like in my hoodie and sweatpants or pants, just like short pants, shorts, short pants. Anyway, and yeah, my natural voice is low. Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not like really low, but I think it's like compared to what is considered as like a feminine pitch, I think it's low. Like a standard masculine voice, I guess. Yes. So if I wanted to pass as female right now, as I'm speaking, I would have to go all out, super feminine, and shave my beard, wax my body hair, because I have a lot of them, and probably wear a long haired wig and strive to speak in a much higher tone of voice while using feminine vernacular. And I'm pretty confident that if I did that, I would be able to visually pass, but I'm not so sure about my voice. I have a theory that it may be easier to pass in Japan because the gender stereotypes are so divisive there, and the cis majority are less aware of LGBTQIA plus people. I feel like most cishet Japanese people don't think that they could be in the company of an LGBTQIA person in their daily life, and this can work in favor of passing, but it also contributes to the erasure of our presence. There may be some cishet people who claim that they can sniff out the queers, quote, or sniff out the trans people, quote. But in my experience, those people are full of shit because they clearly never thought I was a queer person as they said those things in front of me. Yeah, there are always these kind of people who are like, oh, I can tell because of my whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm right in front of you. Anywho, that said, if you are a binary trans woman, it may be easier for you to pass as long as you're consistently following a standardized public notion of femininity in Japan, which I have to say is pretty sexist. Let's be honest. For non binary people and gender diverse people who want to express themselves in gender non conforming ways, passing as one binary gender could get difficult due to the fact that our gender expressions may largely deviate from what is standardized by cishet people. So, the next part is a bit of a content warning. The following paragraphs contain references to sexual assault. It does not have description of sexual assault. It's just statistical stuff that I wanted to list. So if you are not comfortable with any mentions of that, you can turn off right now. I will take a moment before I go back. Okay. So as long as you're fine, just stay with me. Okay. I hate to say this, but one way you know you're definitely being perceived as female is when you're getting unwanted attention from men. And Japan is notoriously full of sexual harassments and sexual assaults, predominantly against women. The National Police Agency released the statistics that over 96%, 1,355 of 1,405 cases of sexual assaults and rape victims were female in 2019. Also, NPA, National Police Agency, noted that almost 80% of the victims of stalking were female in a statistics page updated in April 2022, as of this writing. So these are the sources that I put, which you can look at once you get this PDF. If you are perceived as women in Japan, regardless of whether you want to or not, there are higher risks to become a victim of sexual crimes, which is terrible, but it is the truth. Like, I've never had anything happen just because I am perceived as male in Japan. And, like, I guess the common notion is that, like, if you are perceived as male, usually, and I have a lot of tattoos myself. So I think most people wouldn't, like most men wouldn't want to deal with me. And I will throw hands if I must for like protecting myself, you know, if they dare to try to beat me up. But anyway, I'm digressing. So another thing to consider is that if you are not East Asian, you may be subject to a different set of standards in Japan as a foreign person. This is like another consideration for those who are not East Asians. This may or may not work in your favor depending on your ethnicity and the color of your skin because Japan has an affinity to white supremacy and has a colorism issue as well. And the colorism issue is something Japanese women are particularly subjected to. It's a common idea that the paler skin you have, the more beautiful you are. That's why there is a whole cosmetic sector for bihaku, which is beautifully white, products that lighten one's skin. Just set your research, just set your search to Japanese and search the term bihaku, and you'll get a barrage of articles, product pages, as etc. for skin whitening. So that's terrible. And unfortunately, there isn't one ultimate solution to passing for everyone. And it sucks that we have to think about passing as gender diverse people, especially if it's not something we're doing because we want to, but because we have to for survival. If we want to pass as one of the binary genders, we have to look at our intersectional and bodily circumstances and make adjustment according to those factors. And I'm sure many trans and non binary people are already doing that to get by in our lives. I mean, I would honestly want to wear like something pink every day, but it's not really something like I don't want to get unnecessary attention from people. So it's like it's just easier for me to get by when people think I'm just like your regular bloke or something. Anyway, next part. Using female language for gender expression. I'll just go scroll a little bit. Uh, for people who want to pass as women, using female language in Japanese can enhance their abilities to pass as women in public. And of course, female languages can be used by everyone else too, in a form of queering things up. Oftentimes, drag queens and gay men on Japanese media use female languages as a form of gender nonconformity. So, like, if you watch Japanese TV and some of the variety shows would have famous drag queens on TV, and they're usually on the older side. I haven't seen anyone who's like really young and who's a drag queen and they're doing well. I mean, they're famous in Japanese media. Usually, they're like 40s and above. So those people are often seen using female languages. And in the following parts, I've listed some terms from a paper written by scholar Risako Kurosu named Onna Kotoba Otoko Kotoba no Kenkyu, Saito Henkan. Hensen ka? どっちだろう? Anyway, I thought it was 多分変遷だろうね. Let me just check. 変遷. Yes. I knew it. So this kanji is right over here. Sai is difference and hensen is transitions. So in the following parts, I've listed some terms from a paper written by scholar Risako Kurosu named Onna Kotoba Otoko Kotoba no Kenkyu, Saito Hensen. Female words and male words, differences and transitions, and a few additional ones I thought I should list from my experience. I've written the definition based on Kurosu's document and also based on my common dictionary knowledge and from what I know as a native Japanese person. Other sources will be put in brackets. So Risako Kurosu's paper is an analysis of feminine words and masculine words used in Japanese literature from 1946 to 2005. So obviously, words used in literature and words spoken in Japanese, they do differ a little bit, spoken versus written stuff. But there are common grounds. So I picked some words that I thought would also work in spoken languages as well. So the entire paper actually is free. You can download it from her university repository, which I have the link over here that you can access to later on when you download as PDF after I correct some of the mistakes I've made. So my list doesn't cover all of the feminine words there are in Japanese, or phrases. I just aim to cover some of the common ones people may see or hear so that this guide can serve as a starting point for those who don't know a lot about feminine vernaculars in Japanese. There are some feminine words that make you sound like an old woman. So I put a little clock emoji before those words that have that effect. There are some feminine words that are not used in real life anymore. These words could be used when people are joking around or trying to do like a caricature like impressions of certain kinds of women. So I put warning signs before those ones. And I haven't written this, but like I think anime or manga is a good resource. Like it's one resource that you can use to learn Japanese. But some of like the dialogues are not very realistic. Like if it's a fantasy setting or if it's not like one of those like slice of life stuff, usually the some of the words that the characters may use are not used in real life. Like for example, this first one is a good one. So the first part I've listed some first person pronouns like this one. So this is I put a warning sign because atakushi is I in Japanese. It's one form of I, but it's not commonly used in real life. And you might see this one being used in anime or works of fiction by an arrogant female character from a rich family. It's like one of those like, you know, ojo-sama type characters, if that makes sense. Like the kind of girl that would like laugh with like oh kind of way. May have like blonde curls. That's like the stereotypical ojo-sama character, you know? So Atakushi is like it has an air of haughtiness to it. So I wouldn't recommend you to use it unless you're going for that character, like if that's like your fictional persona, or maybe you're a drag queen and you want to go for that like haughty, arrogant type of character, you might use it. But in real life, if you do use it in workplaces, and if you're a foreign person, most likely the Japanese person who you're speaking to would think that you might be using it as a mistake. So that's the reason why I put a warning sign there. And atashi is feminine I, and this is very, very common, and it's informal. So you wouldn't use it. Um, you would only use it like amongst your friends, but you wouldn't use it to your senpai or higher up. But it really depends on what kind of senpai you're talking to, or like what kind of like higher up at workplaces you might be talking to. So, watashi or watashi, the kanji, watashi, the third one, ですね、ここ. Both are pronounced watashi, and this is a gender neutral formal I, but in common speech, predominantly women use this. Wow, I didn't finish my sentence over here. Men who use this tends to be, and then I end it. Sorry for that. I will correct this later on. But what I meant to write here was that men who uses this tends to be older. This was written in Kurosu's document. So that's what she said. That's what the scholar Kurosu said. That men who uses watashi tends to be like older people. Anyway, next one. Atai. This is not very common, but it's like informal feminine I. Another one. Um, I guess like it's one of those like character type thing. So unless you're using it on purpose, I don't think you would find a lot of people using it. I knew one person. I knew one girl who was using it, who was around my age, but like that was her, like cute thing that she was going for, I think. So, and I mean, like, you can use any person pronouns you want. I use like six, depending on situation. So, uh, which I have talked about in another presentation. Anywho, getting back to the point. So uchi, this is interesting one because uchi as a possessive pronoun is used by all genders, but as a first person pronoun, it is commonly used by women. And the usage is most common in the western part of Japan. So, like Osaka and West is like the common area that uchi is used. So, if you find men who are using uchi, like uchi no kazoku wa, that's a possessive pronoun, like my family. So, or they might, or some men might say uchi de wa. That means at my home. So, that's not personal first person pronoun usage. So, you should be careful of that. So, personally, I've heard uchi used by a lot of women around my age or younger, but probably not teenagers, I think. I think like gyaru and younger people tend to use their own name as first person pronoun. So, yes, you can use your name. You can be like The Rock, as in Dwayne Johnson. You can refer to yourself in third person, and that can be your first person pronoun in Japanese. Anyway, next part. Second person pronoun. So this is you ですね. So there are various ways of saying it. The first one, I put the little clock because it sounds like an older person. Otaku as in, not as in nerd, but as in you. But yeah, this is usually used by older ladies. So if your intention is not to sound old, don't use this. The second one is anata, which is a formal, more formal you that is commonly used by women. And when used by a married cishet woman, it's usually in reference to her husband. The third one, sorry, is anta. This is like a informal anata. And while Croce's paper states that about 67% of the people using this form of you are women, I've heard it from Japanese men as well. This also makes you sound a bit old when you use it. Like I remember my mom or my aunt using it towards me. So, that's another thing you should be careful of if you're using it. So, second person pronouns like name kun, nani nani kun, or nani nani chan, nani nani san, those are all used by all genders. So you shouldn't worry so much about it. And also, second person pronouns of referring to your family members by their family positions, like otosan or okasan, etc., oni-chan, one-chan, oji-chan, oba-chan, etc. And referring to people by their social positions, like calling the head of your department bucho, or calling your senpai senpai, or all of those things. Those are also used by all genders. Hmm. Yes. So there's two other things that are particularly important to gender expression, which I'll be going through. And so the second one that you're seeing at the end of the page, right over here. Uh, so there's sentence ending particles, which is called bunmatsushi. And these are like usually in proper Japanese spoken, it ends with desu imasu. Desmasu is like the proper thing. But there are various ones that you can put, which makes you sound like one gender or the other, or feminine or more masculine. So these, I've listed the ones that Kurosu has listed as extremely feminine or feminine. So on the list of extremely feminine, first one is kashira. Nani nani kashira. is a question. So this is I put a little clock because it kind of sound makes you sound old. So nani nani dawa. Dawa is a statement, and that is also a bit on the older side. Like I might use it, but I'm 32. So it's like, I'm like getting older, so it's not that weird if I use it. But if somebody like in the 20s use it, that might make them sound a little weird, I think. Masua is a statement, and I probably should put that. Masua ってそんなに聞かないからね. Like masua also is a little bit of the warning sign, I suppose. That is a statement, but I don't really hear that very often in regular life. 何々してちょうだい. This is an imperative, like, could you do that for me, please? But if an older woman said it. And desu no desumono desu Desu is pretty common, and I think it's these days it's quite gender neutral. A lot of people of different genders would use it. Desu wa and nani nani teyo. Teyo is like definitely not used in regular speech. I think you would find them in like really old anime because I haven't heard it like anywhere else in real life. Phew, that surprised me. It was my speaker. Anyway, yes, ですよね、ですは手よ。何々なの. This is pretty common. なのですね. Nano is pretty common. なのね can be a statement or a question if it's ended with a question mark. And hello, first time person. Two first time people. Thank you for joining in the chat. So, nano ne, nano yo. Those are all statements. But like nano yo can be also used as a rhetorical question, I think, if it's ended with a question mark. And no ne, no yo ne, and mono ne. And these like yo and ne are more feminine sounding, I would say. So these are all statements right over here. And the feminine ones include damono, that's statement, nano as a question, and no as a question. These are all sentence enders. So there is a sentence before it, and then it ends with this particular word, and yone. So these, yes, it's lacking a bit of explanation, but I was running out of time when I was writing this, and I apologize. So next part, this is the last part, and this is interjection ですね。感動詞です. So it's like, wow is an example of interjection. So yes, an important note is that Kurosu noted that older women are more likely to use interjections than younger women. So if your intention is not to sound old, you might want to avoid these. All right. So extremely feminine. Let's go to extremely feminine and ah. The way it's usually said is like probably. I mean, it depends on people to people, of course. But as is used to convey comprehension of something and not as an agreement. Because men also use as well. But when men use it, is to convey agreement. それね、みたいな. So that's like the difference that you have to pick up on depending on what gender person is saying it. Like if it's a man saying and women saying those may be different things, although it may sound like the same. So next one is ara. Ara, which usually you find a lot of older women, like over the age of 40 or something, maybe like 38. Somewhere, some people are above the age of 38 to, you know, obachan, grandmas saying it. And ara is like, ara could be surprise. Like if it's short, it's surprise. But if it's like ara, like that's something you would say if you find like a kitten. Like, oh, aw, what an adorable thing type of meaning ですね. And arama is like similar ですね. Arama is like, oh my. Arama どうしたの? Like, arama どうしたの is like, oh my, what happened to you, my dear child? So, yes, next part. So those are like older women speak. So you might not want to use it so much if that's not your intention. So iye, this is like not iye. Of course, is used by many people, but in this sense, it's like oh no, but not as in oh no. It's not the surprise oh no. This now. So next is is no, but like it makes you either sound young or immature. So you wouldn't use this in a formal setting, of course. And is agreement, like mm-hmm. The chotto is not as in little bit, but as in hey, like hey, stop doing that. Chotto yamete yo is hey, stop doing that. And ne is very あれだね. Ne is very feminine. It's like hey, but with an A, I suppose. Like if it had to be made into English. So it's ne is very feminine also. It's like ne times two. So next one, ma is oh my desu ne. There's a typo. I accidentally put a bracket there instead of quotation mark. But ma exclamation mark is a surprise. Like oh my. But if it's not like exclamation mark, it's ma. Then it could mean like なんだろうね。なんだろう。まあ。確かに。I'm just thinking of like an example. Like, まあ、大変だったわね. That would be like, oh my, you have gone through a lot. So, it really depends on how the person is saying it. So, there are various interpretations, of course, for each one. So, next part. not as in that. あの日、あの時、あの場所でのではないです。So, not as in that, but more like, or, excuse me, like, すいませんとかね. So, and the last one is so. That is like agreement. そうなのよ. That's very feminine. So above words all have different connotations and nuances and could also mean different things based on how they are said and in what kind of situations they are said. So I think it will help if it will help you get a better understanding if you keep them in mind while you read, watch, or listen to Japanese dialogues while you get used to them. ですね. So, conclusion. well, conclusion of this document, anywho, that I will have to rewrite some parts of and correct my typos. I hope this guy was a good starting point for feminine vernaculars for Japanese learners. If you found this article, uh, not article, if you found this guide helpful or informative, I appreciate it if you could donate to my coffee ですね. You can donate to me here on this link right over here. And I will continue to post more things on coffee that centers around LGBTQIA plus matters involving the Japanese language and or culture. So if you want to keep up with my post, please follow me there and also on Twitter. Well, Twitter, usually I'm just like posting a lot of memes and stuff. But I mean like, you might find it interesting still. So yes. And anywho, this is like a bonus part. Oh, hang on. So this is like a bonus part ですね that I'm just going to address. I'm just going to read some of the stuff. So this is the Wikipedia page for 女性語ですね. I've linked it so you can read it later on. So I thought it would be good if I went through some of it because there's not a lot of words here. So if you want to look at the list of 女性語, just go to 女性語一覧. 一覧 is a list. And what does it say here? 以下に挙げる一覧には女性特有とまでは言えない単語も含まれるが、基本的に現代口語として、使用頻度の低いものは女性語的なイメージを与えやすい。地方によっては用法が異なったり、男性語であったりする場合もある。So it says here that some of the words in this list may not be like particularly categorized as only being used as feminine, but in modern Japanese vernacular, words and phrases that are not often used give impression of feminine words だって。そう、地方によっては用法が異なったり、男性語であったりする場合もある。So what it says here is that depending on regions of Japan, some are used differently, and also some of these words listed could be male vernacular in those places. So in this, at the beginning of this presentation, I was saying that, my presentation is based on Hyojungo, and that's important because like different dialects in Japan would have different sets of gender rules and usages. So like something that might be considered masculine or feminine in standardized Japanese like Hyojungo would not be the same in like Kansai Ben or Hiroshima Ben or some other places. So be careful of those things. So if you do go to like different regions or like rural countrysides, you might find yourself like in company of people who uses dialects or like certain words not the same way as Hyojungo Japanese. So yes, you should be careful of those things. Okay. 主な主語。一人称は私が基本形で、砕けた私もよく使われる。So it says 私 is like the basic form of first person pronouns. Excuse me. And 砕けた. 砕けた is like the only word I can think of in English right now is like bastardized, but it's not bastardized. 砕けた is like informal. Informal 私もよく使われる. It is often used. So, atashi probably is like very, very common informal first person pronoun ですね. I use it myself, like when I'm talking with my friends. So, yes, あなた. Well, I went through this part in my presentation, so I'm going to skip through that. で、あら which I have addressed earlier. It says, あを高く発音してちょっと驚きを示す. So if you pronounce the a part a little higher, like あら, then it's surprised. Surprised expression. But らを高く発音して不審な気持ちを表す. But if you say あら, then it's like, wait a second. It's like suspicion ですね。あたし、一人称、やや砕けた表現。複数形はあたしたち、あたしら、あたしども。I have never heard あたしども though. So あたし is the informal 私 and the plural form of あたし is あたしたち or あたしら or あたしども. And as I said before, I haven't heard あたしども before. あたくし、やや砕けた表現。And this I addressed earlier. It's not something that you would use in real life. And atai also, I have referred to it earlier, so please go back to the stream where I'm talking about. Anata anta also, I've talked about it earlier. And asobase, like gomen asobase, is something that you would never hear in like modern Japanese. It's like なんだろうね。英語でなんだろう。ごめん、遊ばせは。good afternoon みたいな。Like, ごめん遊ばせ is one of those お嬢様 word that you would hear from a character in older anime of like this rich girl from, family with a lot of money, like the bourgeoisie girl type character word. But even then, I don't think you would hear that in like modern anime. This is like 1970s anime word, I think. Like I have heard people use it in real life only as like you're fooling around and you're kind of playing that character type of thing. Yan is like, oh, stop it. ですね。不快な、また意外なことに驚きを表現する言葉、何かを拒絶している意味合いはない。そうなんだ。心が動揺せずにいられないといったことから表現する。So, yawn is not exactly, oh, stop it. It's not like, stop it for real. Apparently, it's like, it's something that you would say, an interjection that you would say when you find something displeasant or unexpected. まあ確かにね、いやーんって言うもんね。So apparently the etymology of this yan or yan is 心が動揺せずにいられない。One, I cannot help but have my heart be moved らしいですよ。So うち、うふふ Ufu or ufufu is like giggles of women. ですね. It's a feminine giggle. And also like ohoho is another thing, as you can tell over here, that you might hear. I use it sometimes when I'm talking to my friends, like in place of mwahaha. But anyway, ohoho is actually like an upper crust, upper class lady giggle ですね。あらあらかしこ。まあ、どうしましょうかね。How many words? I thought it was not that many. Well, it's somewhat. I will just go with, I will just read them. 頭 This is question I've addressed it earlier. 女性がよく使う疑問の言葉。So, 頭 is question. 賢 ara kashiko. This is not used in modern life. Modern day Japanese ですね。女性が手紙の文章に最後につける。Apparently, kashiko and ara kashiko is used in letters, not in modern times. And kawaii, this is kawaii ですね。Just like interjection. Oh, that's so cute. key is when something happens that you like 悔しいって何悔しいって英語でなんだろう It's like not disappointment. It's like something happens to you that's kind of like it makes you angry but and bitter. So key is something that you might say. An interjection, like God damn it kind of word that women say. And kya and kya. All of these kya is like screaming noises of women. And kudasaimase, kudasaimashi. Kudasaimashi, you wouldn't use it generally in real life. Those are like please, you know. Por favor. ですね. Please, could you do that? And gokigenyo is good afternoon. If you want to go for that rich girl type of character, and you would usually not use this in real life, in real modern life. Zamasu. You would not hear zamasu. This is like the only time you would hear zamasu is from like if you watch Doraemon. Doraemon. Some of you may not watch Doraemon, but Doraemon has Nobita-kun. Nobita-kun has friends, and Nobita-kun's friends, one of the friends? I guess they're friends, but like there's a character named Suneo, and Suneo is like this boy who's born in a rich family, and Suneo's mother is the only person I've heard use zamasu in my life. So she's supposed to be like this, you know, she's upper class lady with a lot of money. So, as it says over here, 上流階級の女性が用いる断定詞の言葉。ございますの変形。So, ざます you would not use it usually unless you're going for the character. あとは何かな特に、そう。そいで、ちょうだいて、で、なさいのね、のよ。のよ、I have. Yes, my brain power is like declining right now to do all of this translation. I'm just looking through. Over here it says haitai, which is 独立語, but this says it's Okinawa 独自の表現. So this is like an Okinawa haitai is good morning or konnichiwa or konbanwa. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. But as you might know, the history of Okinawa, like the Ryukyuan people, the indigenous people of Okinawa has been overtaken by the Japanese people. So it's kind of like, I have mixed feelings about this being listed over here. But anyway, dun dun dan dan. You might hear this from anime or some other form of media when like girls are skipping and like humming noises. あとは特に I don't think there are anything in particular that I should mention. そこまでなんか必要性があるものがないですね。Anyway, so sorry that was a bit like it wasn't thorough, but my brain power is a bit declining right now, and I don't think I can go through all of that. Um, do you have any questions? Suddenly. So let's go through some of the people. This now. Hi, Dozo. I don't know how to say your name properly. Properly. Um, Jerichi? Hi. I hope you don't mind me asking a question. I've heard a lot more younger cis and presumably het people men use wa as a sentence ending particle seemingly with a negative connotation. Have you heard this yourself? I live in Kansai for context. Yes. I think Kansai people would use it fairly often. I think I mean, it depends on what the statement is, but um, I think it's also used in Hyojungo. I mean, it's like seeping from Kansai, if that makes sense. Like, for example, if you say, ah, これマジだるいわ, like ending with wa, men or women can both use that statement, and that would be like, oh man, this is so troublesome. Ugh, type of ending this now. So, um, I've written in one of the blog posts previously, I forgot which one I did, but the gap between the female and male vernacular is becoming smaller in Japanese. So a lot of men, probably of a younger age, like probably somebody younger than me, or around my age of like 32, who are born after Heisei, they might use more female language compared to like boomer generations and stuff. So nani nani dawa or nani nani wa is could be used in negative situation. I guess like now that I think about it, more people would use it in like negative way. So yes. So to answer your questions, I don't think it's something just for younger cis and cis het men. Um, I think just men and women in general could use that in nowadays. Yes, ne? So any other questions? Oh, let's look at the chat. Yes, ne? Um, well, now is your chance to ask me anything that you might have in mind or about this presentation. And if no one wants to ask any questions, that's okay too. Um, yes, I'll wait for like 2 more minutes, and then I'll just end this presentation for today. I mean, if at a later date you have a questions, you have questions. Oh, there is somebody. I was wondering what the different connotation between watakushi and watashi is. Watakushi is a very formal way of saying watashi. Um, you might hear it not in conversations, but you might hear it in like very, very formal setting from both men and women, like in business stuff. So watakushi is the formalist. I don't even know if that's the word, but the most formal form of watashi. And watashi is like the it's watashi is still formal, but it's not as formal as watakushi. And I guess watashi has is more characterized as feminine just because a lot of women tend to use it in like business setting, whereas men might just use like boku or jibun, or some people might use ore in like within colleagues, uh, but you wouldn't use it if you're talking to like your company's business partner or your superior, usually. But it depends on what kind of superiors um, that you're talking to. Yes. Any other questions? I think I can take one more question, and that's it for me today. I've been writing for the whole day. I'm just going to have a sip of water. Well, I think that's it for today. Well, thank you everybody for joining me. I hope this was uh, a good starting point, and it was informative for those who have watched it. If at later date you have any further questions, you can leave a comment on my coffee, I think. Thank you. Thank you for your kind comments. Yes, I will go through the document again and then correct some parts because there were a couple of mistakes that I made. And then I will make this document also available on Coffee. So if you can give me like an hour or so, I will be done with it. But yeah, thank you very much for joining my stream, and I hope I can do more stuff like this in future. But I hope everybody would have a nice and safe Pride Month and a good rest of the weekend. Goodbye.